An independent inquiry will be conducted in Colorado regarding sexual abuse allegations reported by multiple victims within the Catholic Church. The 3 Catholic dioceses in Colorado will voluntarily participate, and former U.S. Attorney Bob Troyer is set to create a public report in which he will review how the church has responded to previous allegations. Krista, do you see this as a positive step for the Catholic Church in Colorado to make amidst a lot of different these kinds of issues happening across the country, of doing, I guess, it seems to me it's very best to try to open the records and make it an independent inquiry, not just ran by the church?
I think it's a great idea. I mean, sunshine is the greatest disinfectant. We have a Christian institution that has had some evil people lurking within it. You also have some cowardly people who enabled these evil people to attack children, to abuse children. That needs to be brought out into light, and those people need to be arrested in some cases, defrocked, heck, excommunicated. I mean, they could find their forgiveness from God himself, but they should do it from a jail cell. And the Catholic Church is a great institution, a great Christian institution around the world. Let's help them do what they need to do to get their house cleaned up and to set a new day.
Natasha, this seems like a pretty big deal, and it didn't just happen under Phil Weiser. Well, we did get it announced with Phil Weiser. I don't want to rob any credit from him, but Cynthia Kaufman started this, at least the discussions back when the Pennsylvania cases broke open. Help us gauge how big of a deal this is for us to see this as front page news in Colorado this week.
It has to be front page news. I mean, there's the number of victims. Certainly, we don't know what that is. But if we're looking, Pennsylvania was 1,000 kids over 7 decades. So if that's any indication of how widespread this abuse could have been in other parts of the country, we're talking about a lot of people who've been victimized. So yes, it should be front page news. As you point out, former Attorney General Cynthia Kaufman was a big part of putting this together. I think if you look at the details of what the plan they put together, it was pretty carefully thought through. I'm sure people might have things they would tweak here or there, different ways they'd want it to be handled. But this is not something that we saw a headline and we the next day filed a press release and said this is how we're going to do it. There was some pretty careful consideration that went into that. And you know, I just have to say kudos. You know, so obviously there's the news this week. There's the work that Kaufman did on it as well. But kudos to the victims advocates over the years and the victims who have come forward. This is not a new news story. This is not even a 5 years news story. This is a very long time coming. So just to give them some credit for being persistent and making sure that this became front page news now.
Scott, it felt like the plan, as Natasha said, was thought out well. You have a former U.S. attorney involved. It's going to be a public report. Even a reparations committee that's been created is going to be led by former U.S. Senator Hank Brown. Though there was no lightweights mentioned in any of that part. So it feels like it's being built the right way. But what do you think?
I can't believe we're still talking about this. When I first moved to Colorado in 2000 and worked as a lowly press staffer, I remember legislators trying to move legislation to give rights to victims of sex abuse in the Catholic Church. And I remember fierce resistance coming from the Archdiocese at that time. And I just think it's amazing to me how slowly the Catholic Church as an institution has moved on this. Just today, I heard that the Pope released what I guess is like an ecclesiastical personnel handbook on the issue. And so I think that it absolutely makes sense for secular state authorities to move in and to try to help facilitate this. And for me, it just means so much that folks within the church are actually willing to partner with the state and do this in a reasonable, facilitated way. But it's shocking to me that we've been talking about this for as long as we have, and that there are new revelations every day that come out across the globe.
Mm-hmm. Patty, Sam makes a good point about this being an issue we've talked about. I think you referenced the Pennsylvania point, you know, for many, many decades, if not 7 decades, if at least a long time in Colorado. What do you make of this handling of the situation that we've seen so far over all the different controversies and ways the issues try to been handled over the years?
Well, to use a cliche, better late than never. It is appalling that it is 20 years since the big revelations first broke in Boston, and we are still coming to grips with it. It's also true that even from outside, you still had to have some cooperation from within the Catholic Church to be able to do the kind of investigation that really needs to be done. So kudos to the people who worked long and hard on this and pulled together a plan that ultimately will see real truth emerging, and also to the victim advocates. I mean, how hard was it for people to first come forward and they weren't believed at all, if they were brave enough to come forward, because they were talking about religious figures? And it's just horrifying. And maybe we'll see some end in closure, and good luck for the victims.